Bloodwolf Arts Studio. Unleash the artist within.
Welcome to Bloodwolf Arts Studio, and I'm your host, Mr. Moonlight. So today, I am reading the next poem in my series, my collection of poetry, The Seasons of Life, Volume 1, Autumn. This poem was written on February 29th, 2012, and it's titled The Carpenter's Work. So this one was written about 2 or 3 weeks after the previous one, and I remember actually writing this one in Burley. So where I grew up on the farm in Teutonia, then we sold seed potato. A little bit of a breakdown, I guess, because in this we actually had three different places. We had the farm in Teutonia, grew seeds, and so we didn't actually um, sell potatoes to things like plants that make potato chips. We would sell our seed to other farmers, and then they would take the seed we gave them, and then they would plant them, and then they would grow them, and then they would sell them to potato processing plants. And so we had the farm in Teutonia where we would contract with labs, and um, they would grow the ones in a lab, because you have to. There's a whole thing. You can only There's a whole thing with diseases, and you can only grow potato for so many generations, and then you have to get new ones grown from a lab that are disease free. So the farm in Teutonia would get potatoes grown from a lab, disease free, and we would grow those and we would sell them. And then we had another, and it's like we would sell them to other farms that were growing them. And that's what the Terraton farm was that we had, was they grew them in the ground, and then they didn't sell seed potato. They sold potatoes to processing plants to be turned into things like potato chips. And then in Burley, we had a potato processing plant where potatoes would get turned from commercial growing, like we did in Terraton, and then they would turn them into potato products. They did like frozen potatoes, baked potatoes, different kinds of potatoes. And so we had three different farms. One did seed potato, one did commercial growing potatoes, and the other one processed them. That's a whole kind of rundown, I guess. And so that's why I was in Burley, because I don't know if they still have one there, but that's where I was when I remember when I was writing this. I was there for a little while, and um, that's one of the things that was going on when I wrote this one. I remember sitting down in the living room in the house they had out there for people who lived there that was working in the plant. Um, and I was sitting there and I was writing this one. And this was one of the poems where, kind of like the one I wrote, Muse, in a sense, because I wasn't entirely sure why I was writing this one either. Um, but one of the things that I was doing at the time was I was talking with one of my cousins who worked at this Burley plant, this potato plant, and because he lived there and he went to school and everything, and so he was walking with me through the college courses I was deciding to do, and I was going to go into human resource and training and development, and so that's one of the things I was doing there at the time. Something I've read in my journal that was happening at the time, and so this poem was a lot about being extremely intentional with the choices I'm making and how important those choices are to make. Because in the poem, a lot of the metaphors I use is there's the carpenter, and then there's the carpenter's work. And the carpenter, I'm specifically referencing Jesus, because like Jesus was the carpenter's son, and so in the poem, then I was considering myself to be the carpenter's work. I'm letting God, Jesus, which are one and the same in the LDCC religion I grew up with, the fundamentalist religion I grew up with. And so this poem was a lot about being in line with the carpenter so that I could allow the carpenter, God, to shape me into the perfect tool or instrument that I could be used for the Lord's work, and essentially just allowing myself to become whatever I needed to be, whatever I was supposed to be, and allowing um, myself to learn the skills and things that the order needed to be able to just fit into my place there and do my part as a man, as a person, as a member. And so this one is very much focused on allowing myself to be sharpened and shaped to become this perfect instrument in God's hands to build the Lord's work. Um, I also remember at this time, uh, my mom was starting to get really distant. Um, some of my family was really struggling with their own things alongside my mom, really going through it with the divorce and everything. And so the whole family was really just going through it right now. Uh, and here I was, you know, on the precipice of everything falling apart, deciding what direction to go and allowing myself to become whatever the order needed me to be, which I mean, growing up, it's not any different. What the order needs me to be isn't really any different to a member. What the order needs you to do is no different from what God needs you to do. It's one and the same. And so that's really what this poem encapsulated. And a lot of focus on how important it is, just as important it is when a carpenter is shaping a beautiful framework, whether it's like a bed frame or, like some kind of molding or a staff or whatever carpenter's building. It's so important for every single stroke of the blade to be very intentional to become the perfect thing that it needs to be. And that was a lot of the imagery and metaphors I used in this poem. So one other thing that came up around the time in my journal that I was writing the carpenter's work was that even amidst all of this, trying to figure out the direction I'm going, that I was still, it's like when I was at home during my schoolwork, because when I wrote this, then I was in Burley, I think, and I don't remember if I was working there or if I was just there to check out the university and college, because I was getting ready to move out there and I was going to be out there for like 4 or 5 years. And so to me, it was kind of like, well, I'm leaving home in turmoil. And so the times that I was home, that I was working on fixing the family. And that was the responsibility that I took on. And I feel like a lot of us in the family were kind of doing that too. Like we were all kind of coming together. But I remember focusing so much on just doing what I could to create some kind of order in the family, some kind of structure, because clearly everything's falling apart. But that was something that stood out to me in my journal when I was writing this. Like even despite all the stuff and chaos going apart, I'm still doing my damnedest to make home some kind of normal thing, I guess. Because here I am looking at moving away, and I'm like, well, if I'm gone, then how can I make sure things are good here, because at this point I was still praying that mom was not actually going to leave. And so in a way, I almost felt like it was a difficult thing to consider leaving, because I'm like, I'm abandoning the family when the family's struggling, when it's literally in the middle of completely falling apart. This poem. So that's this poem, The Carpenter's Work. So remember to like my video, subscribe to my YouTube and my Facebook, Blood Wolf Arts Studio, and then follow me on TikTok as Mr. Moonlight Rhyme. That's my handle across all my platforms. And you can also check out my website, and link to my books for purchase are down in the description down below if you want to check those out. So stay tuned for the reading of the Carpenter's work. So thank you for tuning in, and welcome to my side of the moon. The Carpenter's Work by Aaron Brown. When roads split into slivered ways, as though there is end, where they long so do diverge to branches as they bend, think not that wood only can split only into three, only that where roads began can many paths true be, many ways that twist and bend at carpenter's skilled hands, whittled to misshapen ends, to art worth sands of lands, bringing life to what now longs to shape to boats or staffs, that help o'ercome broken songs, journeys that carry chaff. Looking at each sliver's bend, we choose which road to go, which will bring desired ends, bring strength to paths we know. With each slash of this sharp blade, deciding our next stroke, so much must be truly bade. Our art cannot be broke. If our art were to be smashed, or if we stray our way, our dreams would be sadly dashed, and that would be our pay. So measure every small cut, pray for the guiding hand. When you're done with your long strut, you now can rest your hand. Art eternal is our way to satisfy the soul. With our knife now put away, we rest now eternal.